there. How are you guys?
Good.
I heard Sanakar laughing.
Yes, hello.
Huh? And who all is here?
Guru Prem Kar's here.
Hi, Guru Prem. Welcome.
Satnam, thank you.
And who else?
Preet.
Just Preet?
Yes.
Oh, welcome, dear.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. It's good to hear you. I've been thinking about you.
Oh, you have? That's great.
Yeah. Okay, so who else is here?
Guru
right.
Ravi.
Guru Ravi, and who else?
Kehar.
Kehar. Welcome, Kehar.
Hi.
Kehar's moving out to New Mexico in, what, 3 days?
Oh, 5 days. I'm packing right now, actually, as we talk.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. And who else?
Tamasan Rahmani.
Welcome, dears. Listen.
Sadanam.
Oh, Sadanam. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And who else is here?
Ranjit.
Hi, Ranjit. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Yeah. And who else?
Harai.
Suzanne and Harai?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Great. Well, Sadanam is Barbara here? Sadanam?
I couldn't hear you. I've got a lot of static.
I know. There's a lot of static on the phone. I think we're going to have to resort to star 6 after we get tuned in. Okay. Oh, so is Barbara here?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay,
She
so
she
who
was
else is
greatly
here?
helped yesterday, though.
What?
She was greatly helped yesterday, so thank you.
Oh, I am so happy to hear that. Baba Siri Chand is good.
Yeah, she told me how he came through the door.
How he what?
How he came through the door or opened the door or something.
Right.
Huh?
It's fun stuff. And who else is here? Oops. Who else is here? Okay, so here we are. God bless us all. Okay, so everybody sit straight. Palms together. Palms together at the center of the chest. Long, deep breathing. Good. Long, deep breathing at the brow point. Okay, relax into the brow point. Honor the self within. And inhale to begin. Okay. Long deep breath. Moving now into heart breath. Good. That is long deep breathing. And on the exhale, feel as though the air is coming out of the heart center. Oh, Babaji is saying, feel your joy coming out of your heart center. Feel your joy. He says, this is who you really are. He says, you really are your joy. And as you go along the path, you will know this more and more. Opening. Good. And now, please send heart breath. Heart breath to each one in this very beautiful circle. Whether people are on the phone right now or whether they are listening to the recording later on. Just feel that. Feel the flow among us. Good. And now please send out heart breath. Heart breath for your intention. Somebody you know who really needs this heart breath. And please include Barbara that we just talked about. Good. Opening. This is a very big, joyous occasion for you, you know, this ability to open. That's what he says. This is Baba Siri Chand. Good. And inhale. And exhale. And so he says, oh, yeah, just keep up your heart breath. That'll be fine. He says, what he has to tell us today is quite monumental, but in the most mundane way. He says he loves you. He wants to start out with that. Sometimes he says you all forget. He says it makes him sad when you forget how much he loves you. He says, so begin now doing heart breath and just realizing, feeling, knowing how much he loves you. He says, good. He says, now keep that up. He says, now, aren't we joyful? He says, joy comes from the recognition of love. He says, we've talked about this before, that love is not the same old kind of love that we're talking about. It's not the love of a car. He says it's not the love, he says it's not the love of the divine. He says it is the love of the self. He said it is your self-love, that leads you to the divine, that brings the divine forward. He says that is the greatest bhakti or devotional practice that there ever could be. Love of the self. He says, where is God? He says, point to God. He says, it's in you. It is you. He says, you've just taken on, your divinity, have taken on this forgetting mask for the time being. He says, so you've forgotten where God is. He says it's kind of like playing Marco Polo. He says, and you put a mask on yourself, and you lose sense of direction. He says, but listen, look for, feel that sense of direction. He says, start. Well, he says all of you have already started, but for today, he says, start looking for that love in all the right places. Start at your own heart. Start at your own heart breath for yourself. He says, just feel it bubbling up. He says, spring is not, there is no better time of year than to feel your own self-love. He says, I know that sounds too small for most people. He says, but oh, my dears, he says, that's where the whole universe is. That's where the splendor of all is. He says, you have one heart to share. Now, he says, by the term one, he's not limiting it. In fact, that is greatest expansion to understand that your one heart is the heart of all. The heart of all humans, the heart of all animals, the heart of all creation. He says, move into that one heart, please. Move into that one heart. That is who you are. That is who he says that is who you need to be in your terminology. He says that's who you are already. It's just a matter of consciousness. Moving over to that most exquisite place of who you are. Just breathe. He says, we're just going to take a little minute here. Just breathe. He says, and feel your own exquisite love. He says you can call it love from your own soul, or just pure. Pure, he calls it evaporative love, moving within you. And I'm going, sir, why do you call it evaporative love? He says because it's in sort of an evaporative system, mechanical system. In other words, he says refrigerators and heaters use this system. He says it's generally called a closed system, but of course you know that your closed system includes the whole universe. He says the love comes up, becomes much more refined. He says it does its business, it does its work, generally heating or cooling, and then comes back in to the most sublime, yummy stuff. The yummy stuff is what you can feel. He says it's better than ice cream. He says, please keep it up. Keep it moving. Oh, that analogy was to let us know that it changes form, but it continues to circulate. Continues to circulate. Nothing is lost, he says. No way is it lost. It is a continuing, pure presence of kindness, of joy. He says that you get to experience first. He says, now let this gorgeous love come into your heart, into your soul, into every bit of your body. Even if you have those flabby parts that you say you don't like. He says, enjoy them, love them. Don't leave any part out. Don't leave out any part of your ancestors that is within your boundaries. Don't let any part of your offspring. He says, love the totality of your offspring. He says that that moves from you. In other words, your essence moves on to your own offspring. He says, love your cousins. And he says, who is not your cousin? He says, you have a common ancestry. Love your cousin. He says, now, do you see that your world is opening rather than closing? He says when he talks about this, he's not talking about that pure and sacred privacy that you enjoy. He says that is your own blessing, your own yogi cave, or however you want to say it. But he's saying that the presence of you, the presence of you is magnificent and glorious, and it moves through all the ages, leaving nothing behind, but carrying all with it. In other words, all stays in the pure presence. Your presence from generations of your own life-giving word, life-giving life, is present at this very moment. And it doesn't matter what century we're talking about. It is all still at this present moment. Keep up your breath. Moving through the blessedness of who you are. Know your own kindness. He says, can you imagine if people around the world, or even you and your household, experience this self-kindness? He says that, in fact, it is self-hatred that causes hatred and disruption and chaos across the world. Keep up your heart breath and allow that consciousness of hurt, of misdemeanor, of longing and lost. He says, let it come into your heart breath. Let it be transformed by your own heart breath. By your own love of self. He says, are you understanding now that your love of self radiates? He says, are you understanding that this love of self also begins to include in its closed system the total universe? It includes the consciousness of those here on earth. He says, no matter what political party they are. He says, you need the cutoff, you need the darkness in order to push you forward. If you didn't have that, you would not be pushed forward. As a matter of fact, he says, you've seen my statues of Shiva. He says, we carry that pitchfork thing. He says, that's pushing you onward to the light. Prickling pain to push you onward to the light. Expanding this self-love. He says, do you have any little crimp in your body? Do you have any hurt in your body, whether it be large or small? He says, please send this self-love, this very cuddling and coddling love to every part of your being. Enfold it, enrapture it. Good, and keep it up, please. In every cell, every single bit of your consciousness. He says, keep up that self-love. so that you may experience this one joyous being. He says, even if there's sadness, he says, just allow. Allow is like mother's love, holding your shoulders as you go through the sadness. To not taking the, not, he says, not dislodging the sadness, but allowing the sadness with the comfort of the mother's love that comes from you. Understand, he says, that as you do this, understand how huge this consciousness is, how broad and extraordinary this self-love is. Now he's saying, please adore the you of you. So opening and opening. Allowing the greatness of you. Not worrying how big it is, not worrying how small it is. Just allowing the greatness. The prolific self. To be, to just be. And now he says, begin to feel the nourishment that occurs, that is ignited when you consciously engage in this self-love. Let yourself engage in this self-love. He says mastering this self-love means sinking into it. That's all you have to do. He says you don't have to get out and shoot archer's bows. You don't have to run 1,000-mile relays. He says all you have to do is to sink into this great, kind, gentle soft love for yourself. He says, do you feel how relaxed you become in the soft love? Do you see how there is no fear in this self-love? There is no concern about being courageous or cowardly. You simply are. You simply are in this kind flow of who you are. Loving the self-love. Loving the self. Keep up this glorious and beautiful flow, this dance that penetrates the whole universe. Your presence is kind and great. As you do this, do you see that there is no tsunami who can push you over? It could push over your body, but it cannot push over the real you, simply because you permeate all. You permeate all as this great and glowing self. Precious, precious. He says, can you even smell this great love? This is the great love of your life. He says, do you smell that fragrance? Smell the fragrance of who you are. So precious, so kind, so open. so relaxing and so full of potential. He says, don't forget, the flow of electricity is called potential. Feel this self-love as pure, creative potential. Good. He says, now wrap yourself in it, clothe yourself in it, and allow it to be the very, very potent potion, he calls it, that moves from your eyeballs. He says, you've seen enough of those movies that have these lasers coming from people's eyeballs. He says, relax, and allow this self-love. He says he calls it to motivate through your eyeballs. So that all you see is colored with your own self-love. All you see is colored with your own self-love. All that flows from you, all that flows to you is self-love. If somebody is nasty to you, oh, well, it has to filter through your own self-love. So by the time it reaches you, it's like, it did not collapse you at all. Every energy becomes love of yourself. Love of yourself. Any difficulty that you are working with nowadays, any kinds of feelings of hurt or unkindness, separation, he says, in a way, he says he doesn't want to get too deep into this, but in a way they could all be called self-hatred. He says, what's the point? What's the point? He says, just allow self-love. He says, what a benefit. Oh, my God. He says, all those beings at the council table. You remember all those great beings at the council table where you also sit? He says the only difference is that those beings that you look up to are living in the quintessence of self-love. He says that's the whole path. That's the whole business. Love of self. Pure self. He says that effervesces into the love of all. He says, remember, one heart. You are one heart. We are one heart. All is one heart. He says, your purity in this most remarkable condition transcends any kind of jealousy, any kind of feeling of lack. He says, and then it extends on to the universe. He says, imagine if there were no hurt, if there were no lack, if there were no self-hatred. He says, how many wars do you think would happen? How many divorces do you think would happen? How many children crying at night for someone to love them? How many of those would there be? Keep up this beautiful self-love. He says, and rest at your own feet even. Rest at the feet of the Master. The feet and the Master is this self that is totally in love, enraptured with the one self. What a precious presence. He says, what a cooling and informative presence. what you can depend upon. What a transformative presence. Not to rip you apart, but to turn you upside down and inside out until you know, experience, expand who you are. This is the pleasure of you, the greatness of you, the kindness of you. And finally, your satisfaction for being the total intrinsic, he calls it formality and informality of a total presence living as you. Living as you. He's showing that sometimes it's like looking at the bright light at the end of the tunnel. He says suddenly travel into that bright light that is no longer at the end of the tunnel, but that is you. The gloriousness of you. Totally effervescent, glowing. The richness of the loam of the earth that brings about the creation of this all living matter. Beauty and presence. Good. And breathe. Good. Keep up. And now I'm going to open up the line again as you continue your beautiful self-love, and we'll see what happens. Okay. So now feel your experience. Open to who you are. And now, my dears, it is time for you to share. I have a feeling that it's going to be important for you to press *6 in order to be heard. And if it doesn't work, then press *6 again. We'll get it. So, who can share their experience? Who can share? If you can't be heard, try pressing *6 because we're not hearing anybody yet. Sadnakar, would you like to share? *6. Maybe there's something going on with his phone thing. Oh, good. It said you're unmuted now. Okay. So, here we are.
Running for the big magnifier.
I beg your pardon?
I was running for the big magnifying glass.
Oh, okay.
from the depths of my self-love.
That's wonderful. Okay, can you share?
Oh, yes. I really needed this dose of self-love today. I really did, and felt it in all of myself here. Because I had a moment of really not loving my expression in words. I got in a self-tangle of my own private doing. It wasn't even out in the world. And
I think we can all relate.
Wow, thank you. And I was like, oh, get good thing I took care of it here, in the privacy of my own little orb.
Mhm. Right here with
And
your tribe. Yes.
so that was a beautiful experience, and at the very end, I saw Elvis of the meditation.
You saw Elvis? Elvis Presley?
Yeah. He was so beautiful.
I love that. Was he wearing one of his great costumes?
No, he was in his early days when he had that great thick black hair, and he was about a size 10, and so pure. And I mean, he always was. He helped so many, but he just was like looking at me, like yeah, just shaking his head. It was really fun.
Number 10, affirming another number 10.
No.
I love that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he was saying that, with his eyes and everything. I was like, and I've always made this joke that when I was asking for my perfect partner, John, 12 years ago, I remember always saying I wrote a letter to God and Elvis, and just to make people laugh, and so I think Elvis finally got the joke.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Baba G, he's saying, yeah, she got it. That's it.
I am my joy.
Yeah. Did somebody else want to make a comment? I think I heard a few voices there.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
You can hear me. My name is Barbara. I saw you yesterday.
Oh, hi, dear. Welcome. Yes.
I don't have a comment. I'm just enjoying listening.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you're with us. We all did heart breath for you at the beginning of the class.
Yeah, I've been doing it all night and all day. It's what a wonderful shift.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. You're feeling better then.
Yes, I really want a bumper sticker that says "Shift happens," and it happens in so many ways. It happens. It happens physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
How wonderful. Well, welcome, dear. We're so glad to have you with us. Barbara came for a healing session with Baba Siri Chand yesterday.
Nice.
He showed up. It was good.
Yeah, it feels really good to smile at my son and really feel, not know, but really feel that he's safe.
That he's what?
That he's safe. He's in good hands.
Right.
I mean, I had no doubt, but
I
just was hoping that there would be someone there to really guide him.
Yeah, and you got Baba Siri Chand doing it, yeah?
Right on. The dude.
Good.
Hey, he's a little bit, I learned a new word yesterday, eye candy.
Oh, yes.
He's a little on the
cute,
side.
You mean?
Oh, yeah. I've been doing research on him this morning, and he lived to a ripe age and walked off into the forest, and that was that.
That's it. And he says he still has his body.
Oh, yeah, that's what we hear. I mean, that's what I read. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, eye candy. So.
Yeah, he's a cutie, right?
Yep, he's a cutie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for yesterday.
Oh,
it was
sure. I have to tell you, I'm doing healing sessions here in California, and I can't tell you how much fun it is to see people just be with their souls, be in their brightness. Oh, my God, it's the most wonderful experience. So I really enjoyed being with you yesterday, dear.
Thank you so much.
You were welcome.
You really brought You brought such joy to my heart.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So, who else would like to share their experience? Self-love.
This is good, Pam.
Hi, Group Prem.
Hi. My experience of it was the same experience I get from breathing the goodies. It's just like, everything's within me and the universe is there and can reach all people all around the world. So it's like just the innate nature of love, divine love.
And that's what it is. It's a feeling of love. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's pure. Well, love and the experience of exquisite peace with it. Where everything's so calm and easily understood, very clear, pristine.
Wow. Calmness and clear. Sounds good to me. Very beautiful, dear. Thank you so much. And who else can share? Sadanam, can you share? We love having you with us.
Oh, I can. I was in a nice space before when I was going for a walk, the session yesterday with you, and that it was just nicely unfolding, and just that deep sense of peace, was just radiating everywhere, and it was lovely. And listening to, as you were leading us through, I didn't really have a deep experience like that, but ideas were coming through to me. And one of the ideas that I wrote down is, we need self-love until we realize that we are love itself.
Oh, precious.
So when we're not in that full space of embodying that love, then we need that as a practice to practice the self-love. But that pretty much dissolves into when we're just love itself.
And that's the truth. That's a reality, isn't it? Oh, wonderful.
And then another idea that came is that it's not that we don't love others. That's the fault, if you want to call that a fault, but that we don't teach others to love themselves.
Wow.
That's the. It's not so much oh, I love you, and how can I be love towards you, but are we teaching them to love themselves and be in that space of love itself? That's more important.
Cool. So Sadanam, how do we do that? How do we teach others to love themselves? How do we do that? You just listen and tell us.
By example, if you can move into that space where you just love itself, instead of trying so hard to be loving, because
I'm sorry. Say it again. We had a little static or something.
Oh, okay. If we can move into that space of love itself, instead of trying so hard to humanly love people, and it comes from, that becomes a sticky kind of need, kind of like I need you and I need to give this love to you, But just by example, if you can become that in that space of pure love, then you become the example of that, and that radiates. Like you said before, that radiates. Your love of self radiates. So if you're in that space of love, without trying to, throw your line out and catch people, lasso. I'm going to lasso you with love and pull you in. It's just. It just radiates. The line goes out, and without even you knowing it, you don't have to know it.
Right, and it seems to melt others' despair or separateness or something.
Yeah, it's like the sun. The sun doesn't. It shines on everybody, but it doesn't know every little person. Like, oh, I'm not shining on you. It just radiates without. That's the very nature of it. So.
Cool. Wonderful. Thank you, dear.
Sure.
Now, who else can share?
This is Guru V.
Yes, dear. Hi.
Hello. This was so perfect, as always. And yesterday I found myself in a very dark space.
Oh.
And felt so unsupported, and then I came home from the studio. This happened after work, and in the presence of students, and I was really beating myself up because I kept hearing Yogi Bhajan's words of don't let your students see your weakness, and I felt like, oh my God, they're seeing so much more than my weakness. I felt just so dark and so depressed and so alone, and I opened up my emails and read your newsletter, and I'm like, oh my God, this is speaking directly to me. And felt like I'm trying to fix everyone. And then I went into this whole space of why am I trying to fix everyone? Is it for my own egoic nature? Am I really doing it out of compassion? Is my compassion becoming sticky, like we're just hurt? And then I had, after I read that and I sat with it and practiced heart breath, and it was like I have to love myself more. It's, why am I beating myself up over this? And did some more heart breath. I spoke with Ranjit this morning. She and I were both talking about that. You shift. It's such a simple, it's not when you're in the middle of it, but it is. It's a simple shifting. And like today, everything with that self-love, everything changes. It's the same situations. You're facing the same challenges. None of that has changed, but the shift has occurred, and it's coming from a totally different place of self-love, and that makes all the difference in the world. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing.
All it does is just take a shift in consciousness, to the Aquarian dimension, to soul. That's what it all is about. Do you think that you were carrying other people's difficulty in separation?
Yeah, I've been feeling like that, but then yesterday I felt like that's a cop-out too to say that.